Your change project just got hard and suddenly everybody's acting out like they're in some bad TV reality show. Welcome to the toxic ecosystem of the Karpman Drama Triangle. It's where people play three dysfunctional roles. Either the whiny victim, oh it's so hard, it's not fair. Perhaps the finger-waggling persecutor, you're no good, you're rubbish, you're letting me down. Or perhaps it's the exhausted rescuer, give it to me, let me fix it, let me take it on. All these roles are dysfunctional, nobody escapes it, not even me. The drama triangle is many things, and one of them is predictable. Here's what might melt your brain just a little bit. The role that you play least often, that's the role that most easily triggers you into the drama triangle. When somebody else is playing their role, you get sucked into the vortex. But good news, I've got 3 questions for you that can help you recognize you're in the drama triangle, pull you out of the drama triangle, and get you back into productive change as quickly as possible. I'm Michael Bungay Stanier, and this is Change Signal, the podcast where we cut through the blather and the BS and the noise to find the good stuff that works in change, transformation, and growth. What you're about to hear is the very first Change Signal LinkedIn Live. We had hundreds of people sign up and attend for, I think, 2 good reasons. First, it's free. So make sure you follow me on LinkedIn so you can be part of the next one. I will be running these regularly. And second, and this is more important, I think because it's about one of the very best human-centered models I know. I learned about the Karpman Drama Triangle more than 30 years ago, and it still remains at the heart of both my self-management and my change management toolkits. In other words, it's got a way of scaling that's amazing. It has a profound way of revealing patterns of dysfunction for ourselves, for our teams, for our organizations, and clues in ways to move beyond those patterns of dysfunction. So here we go. You know, when I first moved to Toronto, I was working in Boston. I was working as a change management consultant, and my time was up in Boston. And I lined up a job in Toronto as a change management consultant, moving to a new consultancy. But my flights out of Boston were on 9/11. So amongst all the other chaos that was going on, you can imagine that this was not a great time to be a consultant. And in fact, the consultancy went, yeah, that job we offered you, we're not offering you that job anymore. And I ended up working in-house, running a change project for a company that was rebranding itself. And it was a really tough gig. It's fair to say that I failed almost completely at that gig. And one of the things that I did, one of the things that kept me sane and kept me learning and kept me growing was on a weekly basis, every Friday afternoon on the bus trip home, I would actually sit there and go, through the lens of the drama triangle, what's going on here? What role am I playing? What role is the situation playing? And that's what I want to dig in with you. So we're going to make this really practical. The Karpman Drama Triangle, it has its roots in something called TA, transactional analysis, created by a guy called Eric Berne. You may have heard of TA, or at least you may have heard of the language that is often associated with TA, which is kind of parent-child relationships, adult-to-adult relationships. A helpful model. Feels a little dated, and it definitely doesn't feel like it works in corporations. You know, it's hard to go up to your boss or to your change sponsor and go, I feel we have a parent-child relationship. How should we shift this? Would you like to lie down on my sofa? Can I lie down on your couch? And we have a heart-to-heart about it. That doesn't really work. But a guy called Karpman, a student of Eric Berne, the founder of transactional analysis, evolved a new model framed around, or with its roots in TA, called the Drama Triangle. And as I say, I talk about it in the Coaching Habit book and some other books that I've written. And the core insight of the Drama Triangle is this. When things go wrong, when things are stressful, when things go off the rails a little bit, And as you know, as a change professional and a coach and a consultant or whatever role you play, that happens all the time when you're in a change project. Well, when that happens, three different roles play out. There is the victim, the rescuer, and the persecutor. And we're going to dig into each one of those three roles. So let's start with the victim role. Now, if I was to ask you, do you know somebody who likes playing the victim? Your answer would be, I exactly know who that person is. And you can guess the behaviors and the actions and the words of somebody in victim mode. It's not fair. It's too hard. I'm hopeless. The situation is hopeless. I can feel myself slumping down the chair even as we speak. There's that kind of resignedness to it, that powerlessness to it. But the thing about playing the victim role, that kind of whiny, complainy, powerless, what can you do role, is there are both prizes and punishments to that role. And this is a key insight because when you're in the drama triangle, things are dysfunctional. You are operating at a level that is not your best. This is not your optimal you that is showing up. But it's not all bad. I mean, there are short-term prizes. That's why we do this behavior, because we get something out of it, even as we pay a longer-term price for being stuck in this role. So when you think of the victim, if I was to ask you, what do you think the prizes and the punishments for that might be? And what's the benefit of playing the victim role, that whiny, complainy, so miserable role? You get to complain. You get to blame other people. You get to be rescued by other people. It might be your fault. It might not be your fault, but you can't do much about it. So you get to just throw your hands up and feel powerless, which means you don't have to take any actions. You don't have to take any responsibility. You don't have to be accountable to anything. So there's a definite advantage to that. But the price you pay is, first of all, nobody is excited about working with somebody who's stuck in the victim role. I mean, you know that to be true. Nobody's going, oh, that person who complains and feels powerless and says, I can't do anything, it's not my fault. Well, I'm looking forward to another day's work with that person. But there's also a deep lack of agency that you feel when you are in the victim role. You're like, I can't do anything. I'm just on the flotsam and jetsam of everyday life. I'll get swept around. I'll end up where I end up. I'll do what I can do, which is not very much. There's a deep sense of, I have no choice. I have to be resigned to my fate, and I don't like my fate. So it's a deeply powerless place to be. So let me give you another key insight about the drama triangle. You end up in the drama triangle when you are triggered by a moment. And you're triggered by a moment, and it is a moment that pushes you into this dysfunctional behavior. And often that moment is another person, but sometimes and often enough, it's actually a situation. It's actually not kind of that other person who's winding you up. It's just the general situation. So for you, who's the person most likely to trigger you into victim mode? What's the situation that's most likely to trigger you into victim mode? Because another key insight, we play all three of these roles. I mean, you will have your favorite. I can already guess what it is for most of you, but you will have your favorite. But we actually play all three of these roles. In a single conversation with somebody, you can bounce around and be in all three of these roles in a single moment. So this is a moment of holding up the mirror, really, and kind of asking yourself, well, who's the person currently in your life that's most likely to push you into victim mode? What's the situation in your life right now most commonly likely to push you into victim mode? And then, and this is again, self-awareness, because, change leader, heal thyself. When you think of that person and when you think of that situation and you think of that trigger, what is one specific behavior that you would tell on yourself to say, that's how I show up as a victim? That's what it looks like for me. Where I go is I freeze And my team jokes with me being the VP of bottlenecking. And I kind of just disappear. Later on today, I am literally sitting down with Claudine, who is my director of relationships and clients, and we're going to walk through a contract that I have been avoiding looking at, yet alone signing, but looking at for months. And I'm not even sure why this is triggering me into victim mode, but it really has. And so I disappear and I just pretend it's not happening to me. That's my behavior. So the second role to look at is the persecutor. People sometimes confuse this. They call it the prosecutor, which actually works as well. The persecutor. And you can guess what that person looks like. I mean, if the victim is kind of slumping on the chair and it's like, oh, it's so unfair, my life is miserable. Well, the persecutor is quite different. It's kind of leaning forward, it's finger pointing, it's blamey, it's feeling righteous. So there's a kind of there's an anger sometimes to that. Sometimes with the persecutor, it's more subtle. It's like a micromanager is somebody in persecutor mode for sure. And there are prizes and punishments to playing this role, just as they are for all three of the roles. What's your best guess at the prizes for playing the persecutor role? That sort of, you're no good, I'm fine, but you guys are letting me down. I'm going to shout at you. And you can guess immediately that, well, you get to feel superior to people, because it's kind of like more therapy speak here. I'm okay, you're not okay is the general vibe for persecutor. So you get to feel superior, you get to shout at people, you get to blame other people, you get to take credit for when it works, because if anything works, it's probably down to me. And if anything doesn't work, it's down to the turkeys that I'm currently working with. But there's a real price you pay when you're in persecutor mode. One is people really don't like you. They don't like working with you. And kind of when the whipping stops, people go home. People are like, I am done here. It's also lonely. It's a bit of a sad, lonely place because nobody's hanging out with you. And it's also exhausting and overwhelming because you don't trust anybody. You don't believe anybody can do the job, certainly not as well as you. You actually end up taking up a lot of jobs from other people. So that's the persecutor, the prizes and the punishments. And I'm going to ask the same question I asked you before, which is like, okay, when you think of you and how you show up, so let's make this real. Let's not make it just about, in theory. When it's you, who's the person most likely to push you into persecutor mode? What's the situation most likely to push you into persecutor mode? I want you to identify both of those. I'm telling on myself now. But I think of when I show up in persecutor mode, and it's probably the role I play the least. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But ironically, the role you play the least is often the role you play with the people closest to you. And I probably have a nuanced version of persecutor with my wife, I'm slightly embarrassed to say. And it comes down to kind of making cool things happen here in Toronto. And I just have a way of kind of not doing very much about it, but also kind of subtly blaming her for things that aren't working as well as they do. Now, this is making me sound like I don't have a happy relationship. I have a great relationship, just to reassure myself here, and all of you. And also, this is part of my contribution to the dysfunction. There's part of that at times as well. So what's the trigger? What's the behavior when you're in persecutor mode? Because I want you to know how this is for you. Let's move to the third role here, the rescuer role. Now, victim, that's a bad label. Who wants to be a victim? Persecutor? Who wants to be a persecutor? That's a terrible label. Rescuer? Oh, maybe I want to be a rescuer because that sounds better than the other two. Make no mistake, the rescuer is as dysfunctional a role as the first two. So it's got a slightly nicer label, but it is just as dysfunctional. Don't be thinking that this is the best role to play. None of these roles serve you. All of these roles push you into behavior that is dysfunctional and automatic and habitual and ones that are not you at your very best. So rescuer, it's like Let me jump in. Let me fix it. Let me solve it. Let me make this better. Let me try and help. Let me be the person who takes this on from you. Now, that's the kind of the behavior. What are the prizes and the punishments? Well, the prizes, the rescuer is quite a controlling role. You've got your fingers in everybody else's pies. You've got your nose in everybody else's business. So it's really a place where you're like, ooh, I get to kind of do that. You have a feeling of moral superiority because you're like, oh, look at me. It's only through my hard work and my endless contributions and my deep self-sacrifice that this whole organization continues to thrive. But there is a terrible price you pay for being a rescuer. One is, and this is profound, rescuers create victims. Rescuers create persecutors. In fact, I'd say the rescuer is often a real engine of the drama triangle in how it plays out. It also means that as well as keeping people disempowered, because you're like, oh, I will fix this for you, it means that you don't allow good conflict to arise. My friend Leanne Davey has a wonderful book called The Good Fight. And she's like, we need more good conflict because that's actually how stuff gets sorted out. That's how people take a stand for something that matters. And you're exhausted because you're trying to do everybody else's job, eventually trying to do your own job as well. But you pay a real price for playing the rescuer role. So let's talk about the rescuer situation. Who's the person that pushes you into rescuer role most easily, most often, most commonly? What's the situation that pushes you there? This is a big insight for me, that it's not just a person who pushes you. It's not just an individual interaction. It can be you in a context that triggers you to behave in one of these three different drama triangle roles. So what's your person? What's your situation? Name that for yourself. And then what's your rescuer behavior look like? What is it? How would I know? How would you know that you're in rescuer mode? So there we go. Those are the three behaviors: the victim, the persecutor, and the rescuer. The key insights to remember about this is that we play all three of these roles. Secondly, and this is the first time I've said it, so I want to make sure you hear this: you're not inherently a victim or a persecutor or a rescuer. These are roles you play in certain circumstances. This is behavior that you exhibit in certain circumstances. It's typically triggered by something going on, another person or another situation. And when you fall into these patterns of behavior, they're patterns that may give you some very short-term wins, but do not serve you in the longer term, are not the best version of who you are. And, if we go back to TA and transactional analysis, you're basically stuck in different versions of parent-child relationships. And the goal is to be in adult-to-adult relationships. Just to get back to that therapy. What's an adult-to-adult relationship? Well, the snappiest definition I can give you is an adult-to-adult relationship is when you feel that you can ask for what you want, knowing that the answer might be no, and being able to negotiate the difference. That's not all of it, but that to me is a fairly good way of measuring, am I in an adult-to-adult relationship with people? And of course, as a change leader, as someone who is managing upwards with your C-suite and your change sponsor, and managing sideways to your collaborators, and managing downwards to your team, and managing outwards to the people who you're seeking to shift through change, there are so many opportunities for dysfunctional relationships here. And you're looking to go, how do I try as best I can to stay out of the drama triangle and build adult-to-adult relationships? Now, good news, bad news. Maybe this is just bad news. Maybe it's good news. Is that you never leave the drama triangle behind. You're always going to be finding opportunities to get pulled back into the drama triangle. The good news is it means you're alive. You get out of the drama triangle when you finally die, but it means that you're alive right now if you're being pulled into the drama triangle. And the goal is to notice more quickly that you're in the drama triangle, get out of it more efficiently, and stay out of it longer. That's the goal here, not to escape it entirely. That's like trying to get rid of your advice monster. That never goes away either, but you can tame it. You can kind of find a way of lessening its impact. So some questions before we go. The first is this. When you think of those three roles, the victim, the persecutor, and the rescuer, what's the role you play most often? What's your default role? Like, you've heard me say you play all three, and you do. But if you could pick just one to say, this of all the three roles, this is the one that I really identify, the one that I get most often, what are you seeing there? You might be looking now going, I've trained tens of thousands of people in this model because I love it so much. And I would say that 90 to 95% of people self-identify as a rescuer, which I think might be the act of a victim to do that. I'll let that melt your brain a little bit. But most people go, I think it's the rescuer. And I get that. It's got that sort of sense of, look, I'm trying to help here. But I hope that means that you really took to heart the price you pay and the price others pay for you being in that rescuer role. The rescuer is a role that's perhaps more easy to kind of reframe as, oh, I'm being helpful here. And there's a place for being helpful, don't get me wrong. But when it's your default reaction or behavior, that's not helping you and it's not helping them. So let me ask you this question. What's the role you play least often? Because I've got something really interesting to share with you about this. What's the role you play least often? For me, the role I play most often is rescuer, for sure. The role I play least often, and I kind of hinted at this already, is the persecutor role. And I spend enough time in the victim role. It's annoying, but I know that role. I know all of these roles. I know them well. Here's what I want to share with you around the role you play least often. The role you play least often is the role you are most easily triggered by. The role you play least often is the role you are most easily triggered by. I play persecutor least often. It means that when I meet somebody with strong persecutorial vibe, I'm much more easily triggered into dysfunctional behavior in the drama triangle. So this is really helpful for me. It doesn't get to be a source of moral superiority. Oh, look at me, I never play the persecutor. It's like, oh, I have to work really hard around people who have that vibe to stay in an adult-to-adult relationship with them. So how do you do that? How do you kind of stay out of the drama triangle or manage yourself when you're feeling yourself being sucked into that drama triangle? Well, I've got a few suggestions for you. The first is a classic self-awareness, being present awareness, which is keep breathing and keep noticing what's going on. If you journal, if you write, or you just have a chance to reflect at the end of the day, it might be, what's the drama triangle that's played out today? What's the drama triangle that's playing out this week? With these key people who are my key relationships, what's the drama triangle that's here, if anything? And these kind of are circular, because, one feeds the other. Keep breathing. Because when you're in the drama triangle, your little amygdala is getting super excited, that little lizard brain, so-called. And you're in one of the four reactions to stress. Fight or flight, you probably know about. Fawn, which kind of suck up to people, or faint. And in fact, you can actually map those four reactions, fight, flight, fawn, and faint, onto the drama triangle. Fight, persecutor mode. Flight, victim mode. Faint, perhaps victim mode. Fawn, rescuer mode. So there's a way that the neuroscience and our biological response to stress actually shows up written large in the drama triangle. So breathing and noticing, really helpful. Because as soon as you start noticing you're in the drama triangle, you're starting to exit from the drama triangle. And then I've got three great coaching questions that I think can help pull you and pull others out of the drama triangle. But as a reminder, and I would love you to do this, go to thechangesignal.com to sign up for the newsletter. It comes out every Thursday. Leads with the change question. So I share one of the most powerful questions I've got around that. So last two things before we wrap it up. What are the questions? Well, and these all come from the Coaching Habit book. For the victim, I think the best question might be, and what else? And what else? I say that because the victim feels like they have no choices. I have no choice. This is the situation. I don't like the situation. I have no choice. And what else is a way of creating opportunities, creating choice. And if you have 2 or 3 or 4 options, suddenly you get unstuck. So when you're in victim mode or you're working with somebody in victim mode, asking and what else can be really helpful. For persecutor mode, getting clear on what you want can be really powerful, because often in persecutor mode, you're not getting what you want. And the way you're responding to that is you're lashing out. And that's often because you haven't communicated what you want. And you remember I said an adult to adult relationship is asking for what you want, knowing that the answer might be no, and negotiating the difference. Well, I think the work when you're in persecutor mode or working with somebody who is in persecutor mode is asking, what do you want? And what else? And what else? So what do you really want? And then if you're in rescuer mode, and you remember rescuers just love to jump in and fix the thing, uninvited most of the time. That question, how can I help? In the Coaching Habit book, we call it the lazy question, which sounds contradictory, but it's actually meant to slow you down. Because when you ask somebody, how can I help? You're asking them, what do you want? What do you want? So that's the first LinkedIn Live I've done for ages, actually. Thank you, one and all. You are awesome. You're doing great. I really appreciate you showing up here, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.